Hey everybody, ronarray here, and in this video I want to showcase a pretty unusual build. Since I've been farming Uber bosses lately, and Uber Eater specifically, I needed a simple character to do it a little faster and more efficiently. So well, challenge accepted. Here is a pretty cheap but very effective character that is built with simply farming Uber Eater, Uber Exarch and Uber Maven in mind. As you can see on the screen, it can reach a very decent damage on a budget, and it can be even more efficient if you will invest some more currency. I also killed 100 Uber Eaters without failing a single one yesterday on stream with it, and did a deathless Uber Maven too, to pretty much prove the concept. Please keep in mind that the character is a total ZHP. Just a gust of wind obliterates it completely and it can't survive a single hit. So it's not really hardcore viable, right? Let's go forward, and I will be able to explain how the build works, what provides the damage, and how you can build it for yourself for cheap too. I will also showcase a more detailed price overview, but keep in mind that some of the prices can change after video. Check out the timestamps as usual for particular topics, and let's go. So currently the build works with a pretty simple mechanics just stacked together. First off, we are using Victoria Influence Body Armor because it can give us additional level to aura gems and pretty much improve our reservation situation. It can also be easily corrupted and you can get bonuses such as Socketed Trap or Mind Gems. That body armor is very good for mines, so we are combining it with Icicle Mine of Feigning, and together they are doing a lot of damage. We are also utilizing Annihilating Light because we just need to do a lot of damage and we don't really care enough about resistances. On top of that, we are also using the Heat Shiver, which is completely amazing for all frozen and cold builds overall in the current meta. And we can also use Mark of the Shaper to pretty much boost our damage even further. All of that together with our Ascendancy, which is Deadeye, combined with Gale Force and Mark Effect, will make our character just deal crazy amount of damage. So as an Amulet, we are going to use Replica Dragonfang, because Replica Dragonfang can give us 3 levels to our Icicle Mines gem. And Icicle's mines are not really that popular, so the Amulet should be pretty cheap. And we can also get Whispers of Doom in the tree, because we are passing there anyway. And with that, we will be able to combine it with Punishment Cures, and Punishment Cures will help us to finish enemy off pretty easily. And on Amulet itself, we will be able to get Marked for Death, which will provide Calling Strike, and that way we'll be able to Calling Strike bosses pretty often. Finishing them off will be even easier, because Punishment and Calling Strike together works pretty great. To get a little more damage at the start, we're also going to use a Bear Trap. So Bear Trap is here to pretty much just make sure that we are doing more damage when enemy just appears, and pretty much will trigger the Bear Trap almost immediately. And the last part that is pretty much worth it to mention, we are going to use a Decoy Totem, because if the boss is not really going to stand in place, it can attack us, and we pretty much needed to be positioned a little differently, so using basic Decoy Totem is an amazing idea for it. We can just spam it, boss will just start attacking Totem, and at that moment we can literally rush it down pretty fast. So on top of all damaging mechanics, I wanted to explain a few cool things that we are pretty much using. Since our skill is a mine, we're going to use Detonate Mines together with Automation support to make sure that our abilities are detonating. As you can see, they're not detonating without clicks in the hideout, but in the map itself, those are going to be detonated because of the Detonate Mines gem, and it's going to be paired with Automation. So another cool thing that we can use is pretty much Encant support, just level 3, because that way we will have increased detonation speed for our mines, and that's a very cool bonus. So generally you don't even need to click detonation button, the mines are going to detonate themselves. So if we will just enter any kind of zone when we can pretty much fight enemies, for example the Decorated Chamber here, it will lead us to a situation when our mines are detonated automatically, as you can see, and that's very comfortable because you don't need to bother with anything. Another cool thing that we can pretty much use is using a Bear Trap, because Bear Trap is giving a lot of additional damage for our mines, and enemies take 25% increased damage from trap or mine hit. That's a very cool bonus, so if you can hit the boss with a bear trap, it's going to feel much more comfortable. And the last step, as I already mentioned, like decoy totem, because we can pretty much spam decoy totem at the end of the screen, and if you're staying far enough from the boss and decoy totem is close enough, the boss instead is going to attack the totem. And we can also use Arcanist brand to pretty much deliver our curses. And that's a very cool setup because it can give both punishment and the mark at the same time. So at the start of the fight, you just need to put your decoy totem. You can use Arcanist brand and throw your bear traps. That's pretty much it. After that, just spam one button with Icicle mines, and that's pretty much it. All what you need to do. So if you're going to die and you will need to re-exit the fight, you can pretty much start with the same fashion. First goes decoy totem, then you send Arcanist brand, then you just spam the mines, and you can run around a little. It still requires some certain skill because you're totally ZHP, but it should be pretty comfortable. And I never failed a single Uber boss with it, out of the ones that I mostly did, like Maven, Uber and Uber Exarch. So right now, let's quickly discuss the cost. I paid about 350 chaoses per jewels, because we need a lot of jewels in that setup. And each jewel should cost about 50 chaoses approximately. I also paid 100 chaoses for Light of Minion, 1 divine for body armor. It could be 2, but I paid 1 and there was a few for 1 on the market. I also paid about 1 divine per each big cluster, and we need 2, so 2 divines in general. Small clusters I paid 260 chaoses for. Our Icicle Mine gem level 2120 is going to cost 1 divine too. The rest of the items such as flasks, for example, or gloves or boots will cost 245 chaoses. And I also spent about half divine to click my stuff with harvest. And I also spent some additional elder currency to roll implicits on items. That's about half divine too, because I pretty much rolled just the basic implicits. And all the gems costed about 3.3 divines according to Wealthy Exile that I'm going to showcase a little later. So in general, I paid about 15.3 divines per the whole build. So if you're going to try to build it yourself, it could be a little higher, like 16 for example, or 17. I think maybe if some items will go up there, it could even go up to 20, but it still will be very cheap. And 50 divines option is definitely accessible, at least before the video is released. Right now we will go a little further and I will showcase how I bought all the items with, like, you will be able to see the prices on the screen, and I will give a few comments what you need to look for on the items too. So first of the things that you need to buy is pretty much the stuff. You can get any random stuff because you don't really care a lot about the roll. Just don't forget to click it with harvest, and I already calculated in the price. So just get like quality to elemental damage. And after we figured out the weapon, we don't need anything except harvest with quality. We just need to go for the body armor. Body armor plays significant role here, so try to get +2 to gems, and if it's possible, then +4. As you can see, some of the +4 are definitely available for like 1 or 2 divines, so generally they should be pretty cheap. But if you will be unable to get one, just get one with +2 to gems instead of +4. Moving forward, we need a gem, so 21 level gem is pretty much worth it, and I'm paying 1 divine for it. I think it's a very nice investment, because it's going to give us additional damage. And after we finished with the gem, we need to go for the amulet. The amulet itself can have a random stat, but should have +3 levels to Icicle mines. You will be able to get it for chaoses because there's a lot of them on the market, and I think people don't really want to buy them that often. The rest of the stat is not really important. So moving forward, after we figured out the amulet, we will need to get clusters and jewels. I genuinely calculated all of them, but you will be able to just buy them pretty fast. We're also getting gloves right here, as you can see, but at the gloves, nothing important except of getting shield damage. So moving forward, we can pretty much get clusters, so start with a big cluster. Here you will need to pay at least 1 divine per each cluster. And after you figure that part out, you will be able to go for medium cluster too. For medium cluster, you can play with Kelses. So don't aim for perfect big cluster. You can get one with only two big passives. And for medium, just get them for like 60 Kelses. There's a lot on the market right now. Jewels, you pretty much just need to aim for bonuses that I already mentioned, and they should cost about like 50 to maybe 60 Kelses. But there's a lot of supply. You can always get like one multiplier and other bonuses too. And right here I'm buying another one, as you can see, because those are kinda good. I'm not going to showcase all buying process for all the jewels, because that's pretty much what you're going to do. So let's talk about the items that I already had in the stash and just use my own options. First off, the boots. You pretty much can get boots with just STR, dexterity and movement speed. As you can see, they should cost only about 5 Kelses. So next step is Mark of the Shaper. For Mark of the Shaper, make sure that you don't have caster modifiers and you will just have a perfect roll of spell damage. That way you can get Mark of the Shaper for 20 Kelses. That's pretty much it. After that you can just use caster modifiers quality on it and it will be very cheap as well. So probably about like 10 Kelses more. Next step is pretty much getting the ring here. For the ring I just recommend to go with critical strike multiplier and elemental damage, because the rest is not really that important. So since you can get less elemental damage, you can pretty much stay with touch version. And if you will lower numbers a little, you can pretty much get one for one divine. That's a pretty alright price. Also, if you feel like it, you can pretty much drop elemental damage overall and just play with multiplier, because multiplier is providing more damage here. And the next step is pretty much getting the belt. So for the belt, you will just need Abyssal Socket and Trap and Mine throwing speed. However, you need to keep in mind that throwing speed is very easy to boost, so you can get just like 18% for 20 Kelses right here. And after that, you can use quality speed modifiers to pretty much boost it significantly. Any tier 1 will work for you, so don't worry about it. If it will have an open prefix for increased damage, that will be perfect. That's pretty much just sums up all the items. You also will need basic flasks such as the Zero Promise for at least 30 Kelses, such as Vise Oak for 8 Kelses more, and basic flasks such as Sulfur that you can probably roll yourself. I'm using a double crit here just to make sure we always have that critical strike bonus. And Diamond Flask should have an increased effect bonus too, because it helps a lot. And absolutely last part is Hypnotic Eye Jewel that you're going to use in your Stygian. So here you just need to take Multiplier and Penetration. And as you can see, you will have a lot of options for like 5 Kelses down there. And if you will be able to get some added cold, it would be nice, but it's not really adding a lot to the damage. So just focus on Penetration and Critical Strike Multiplier. And the last part that I'm pretty much using in the build is the Light of Minion. Such Light of Minion for cold damage should cost around 100 Kelses right now and should be pretty accessible too. So we will just need to put it in there to have a perfect damage. So since our damage is pretty high but not that high, considering we are here on a budget, sometimes you will be unable to kill the boss. Especially if it's either maybe he will run for a quick stage or there will be another issue, he will hit you with some skill. So in that case, if you're just dying, you can literally re-enter the fight almost immediately. Pretty much put your totem and start fighting again. So just try to do as much damage as possible. It still requires some skill. So please keep in mind that you should be careful because sometimes it can be harder. Especially with Exarch, for example, if there's runes on the ground. So generally it shouldn't happen, but sometimes it still can. In that regard, just rejoin the fight and pretty much do everything the same, because you will be able to finish him off and you have a lot of teleports left. Sometimes it took me up to 3 or even 4 teleports if the fight went completely over rails. Usually it's not happening, but there's still a chance. In that regard, just persevere and you will be fine. So going through the tree showcase, tree is very simple. I used basic tattoos for increased cold damage, those should cost only 1 chaos, and you will need like maybe 15 of them. And generally, here's my clusters, and you can see I use basic clusters with blanketed snow and without third passive, because that way it will be much cheaper. As a middle clusters, we're pretty much just using guerrilla tactics and surprise sabotage. I pretty much showcased it already. And we just need to go down here, take some frenzy charges because it's going to work properly for us. We can also take power charges and frenzy charges here. We're pretty much generating them because of the charge mine support. That way we can get both power charges and frenzy charges every time when we detonate mine. So that way we always will have a maximum amount of charges. And in the tree for the rest, we just go here for hits have 25% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistance values inverted because it's working very good for the build. We're also going to the right to take each mine applies 2% increased damage taken to enemies near it. Well, because there are always going to be mines near the enemy. And we also need to take influence and charisma to pretty much fit in all the auras. So 3 looks like this and there's nothing strange about it. So only 2 big clusters and 4 medium clusters. On top of it, we also need to take Pain Atonement, because we're pretty much reserving all our life, only 20 life left, and with Pain Atonement we're going to deal significantly more damage, so it's a very good bonus. Everything else is not that important, so if you don't have a lot of points, my character is like in level 97, however, if you don't have a lot of points, you can always get rid of Trickery here, together with 1 point, and just drop like elemental focus or assassinations, depends on your build. So it's not going to change a lot for your character, and the rest will stay the same. You can also get rid of Mark of the Prey if you're like level 88, but I still recommend to get at least level 95 for Uber boss farming, because well, it sounds kinda logical. Don't forget to take Whispers of Doom, because we're already using the punishment, and it stacks very nice with it. So another interesting question is, can the build run Sanctum in tier 17 maps? So generally, I think Sanctum is definitely possible. You have a lot of damage, the build is not that fast, but since you have a lot of damage and screen potential, you can pretty much just clear ahead. However, if you want to run Sanctum, I heavily recommend to fix your resistances. You can pick resistances or items, you can use like Purity of Elements, Aura, and you will need to stack a few levels on different bonuses for resistances, but I recommend to rise them all up until at least 70, 75, because otherwise you could get one-shotted by very stupid attacks like lasers or something very basic like that. But otherwise I think the build works alright for Sanctum, you will be able to clear it without a lot of issues, if you will be careful and if you have experience with playing ZHP builds. Talking about tier 17, for tier 17 I think even with clearing ahead or just like with coverage and covering the screen, I don't think it's really comfortable to farm tier 17 with it without huge changes to the build itself. So I would probably go for something little different for tier 17 farm. And that's pretty much it, because that build is just built with bossing idea around. And it's just like the main idea, and it should be just good at bossing. You can pretty much tweak it or change it because it has a lot of damage, but generally I don't think that for mapping it could be a good option. At least with the current setup. So that's been my 15 Divines Icicle Mines build for Uber bossing. Thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed it too. Feel free to subscribe for more RPG content and see you next time. ronarray out.